Hello and welcome to the Valley. Today I am your host, Janet Michael. We are back on the Zooms today with my good friend Les Sinclair. He is the communications and PR manager for the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank. We're going to talk a little bit about hunger in the Valley today. But first, Les, we're going to talk about poverty because sadly, poverty and hunger are two things that typically go hand in hand.
Yeah, it's really interesting that is true. They typically go hand in hand, but what we're finding more and more at the food bank is that folks can be earning more than the federal poverty level and still not be earning enough to buy the food that they need so that they and their family can thrive. So there has been a recent decoupling. It used to be as the unemployment rate went up, the demand on the food bank network went up. It is now decoupled, and we are seemingly in a pretty thriving economy, and that the unemployment rate is low, especially in Virginia. It's below 4%, and that's fantastic. But the demand for food assistance continues to climb. And so there has been a recent decoupling after COVID-19 pandemic, and it's really concerning because it means that it's harder to track. We don't know exactly if unemployment goes up, you can expect food demand to go up. Now, since it's decoupled, we don't know what to do with it. And we're working with some great organizations like the University of Virginia is helping us with some data. They're going to help us start predicting these things. And that sort of machine learning and artificial intelligence learning, we're incorporating those innovations to the food bank as well so that we can be prepared, so that we can be here and provide that stability when needed.
I have talked a lot over the years about that poverty line.
Yeah.
Everybody hears that phrase, the poverty line. And I've had a lot of shows and talked to a lot of nonprofits about that topic in particular. But it's very difficult to understand what that means because it's not a flat number for anyone. It depends on where you live. And then you drill down into the community that you live in. And are you married? Are you single? How many children do you have? It fluctuates a lot. And I think it's really hard for people to wrap their heads around what that actually means to say you're living at or below the poverty line.
The federal poverty line is a hard line, but the affordability line is different depending on where you live. So, for instance, if you live in Winchester, it costs more to live in Winchester than it does to live in Warren County, for instance. And so, even though you may be above the poverty line according to the federal government, you're not able to make ends meet because your cost of living is higher in the Winchester area, for instance.
You sent me an email right before we jumped on Zoom to record this that had a link to the MIT living wage calculator. And I was
Yeah.
joking with you before we started recording about how I'd gone down a rabbit hole I didn't know existed. That is an incredibly valuable tool, not just for people who are trying to determine do they qualify for
Yeah.
services, but for people who don't understand or wonder why their neighbor, their friend, or their family member is in a position to need a food bank. This really gives you some hard numbers no matter where you live.
Yeah, and that MIT living wage calculator, one of the things that I really appreciate is that it factors in taxes because there are people, our neighbors are paying for these goods and services that the rest of us pay for, and it's just harder to make ends meet. And so when you're paying your taxes and then you apply for something like SNAP, that is something that your taxes are helping pay for. So even people who might not be earning enough to have a great diet are still doing the things that they have to do in order to make ends meet or try to make ends meet. The eye-opening part of the MIT living wage calculator for me was the federal poverty level in America for a family of four is $33,000 a year. So I can't imagine raising a family of four on $33,000 a year. But that's the poverty level. So anything above that, you're not in poverty, according to the federal government. This MIT living wage calculator is really eye-opening because it looks at Virginia and the cost of goods in Virginia, including taxes, and it would cost a single person over $50,000 they need to earn in order to have their basic needs met. So the difference between basic needs at 50 some thousand dollars and poverty level at $33,000 is immense.
And we obviously, when we talk about basic needs, we talk from a food perspective because you are the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank. But those basic needs include other things that I think sometimes people don't think of, like daycare. We were talking about childcare before we started recording as well. If you have children, you obviously need to work. And you can't leave a toddler at home by themselves all day. You have to have childcare. Internet is now a basic need because people need it to be able to work, to be able to pay their bills, to do all of these things now. There are a lot of things that are included in those basic needs that I wonder if sometimes the federal government isn't necessarily taking into account.
That is exactly right. The federal government isn't taking those things into account. Now, they've got certain restrictions that they have to meet, and they've been doing it this way for a long time. And moving that ship is very different. That's one of the reasons that the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank, we are not a political organization. We do not endorse or oppose any political candidate, but we do advocate for policies that help hunger relief. And that can be in all sorts of ways. So if you can help people get housing, then that is hunger relief because they can use those funds for something else. And the same thing with food assistance. We really believe that people should have access to the food that they need so that they can thrive. We believe it helps build stronger communities. And so we will advocate for policies that help with food assistance. For instance, SNAP is one of those that we would advocate for. SNAP is the largest and most successful anti-hunger policy in the country. It provides 9 meals for every one meal that the entire charitable food network provides in this country. So 9 to 1. So SNAP is really a big deal. That is one of the policies that we indeed advocate for.
You and I have talked a lot. Andrea from Winchester CCAP and I have talked a lot about this as well, where if you can get people to come to a food pantry to get that food assistance, how that could impact where those dollars then get redesignated for. And I've actually had people over the last year or so when I've had those conversations come up and say, but is that really true? Are they spending enough on food that to move that money to an electric bill, it really makes a difference? It really does.
Yeah, I can share a real story about someone in your area. They were visiting a mobile food pantry. Now, she's a bus driver and she lost her housing, and she and her husband and his father were living in her truck. She was coming to the mobile food pantry, and over time, she was able to save enough money because of the food that she was receiving and not having to pay for, that she was able to save enough money so that she could put a down payment on an apartment, and they are now housed. She has a job. They are getting back on their feet. And that's exactly what the system, our system, is designed to do. It's to help bridge the gap so that people can get from one place to another and become productive citizens again if they've lost their footing because of a situation.
You only have to look as far as your own trips to the grocery store. I know when it's just Tim and I here in the house. Now, granted, we
Yeah.
have the dogs, but if I take all the dog related, the toys and the treats and the dog food and all of that sort of thing out, and even take out laundry detergent or dish soap, which I shouldn't do, just for the food. For us to go just a couple of weeks is $150. So it is substantial these days. I think sometimes people think, oh, it's a food pantry. It's probably only $10 or $15 worth of food. That is not at all the case either.
No, in fact, if someone were to come to the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank for an emergency food box, we would provide them with about 30 pounds of food per person. And that would get them over the hump. And then we'd give them the resources to go to another one of our partner food pantries so that they could get even more food, more nutritious food, and help them on their way. So it really is important to make sure that people have the food that they need. And the food bank is not immune to these rising costs either. We put over 200,000 miles on our fleet of vehicles every single year. And so just a single dollar change in gasoline or diesel prices can cost us tens of thousands of dollars, where that money could be going to food, which is also more expensive for us to buy.
And we talked about this, I think, the last time you and I got together. The donations from the larger chain
Yeah.
grocery stores that you used to have on the regular, they've also gotten really good at being better of projecting their inventory. So there aren't dozens and dozens of bushels of apples or loaves of bread available at the end of an inventory cycle for them to donate to you anymore.
Yeah, and we're really lucky. We have great partnerships with our grocery partners, and they still provide lots of great food for our partners to pick up. We have a program called Partner Pickup that we facilitate for our partners. But they are very efficient. In fact, they're even using apps now to let people know when, for instance, steak goes on sale or something is on clearance right away that you can buy it in the next couple of hours. There are apps out there that will help people do that. So their efficiency is getting really, really good, especially with the help of machine learning and artificial intelligence. And that's great for them. But that leftover food that is still very good and edible doesn't come to the food bank, or not as much of it. And we, again, are very appreciative of our grocery store partners. They do a wonderful job and they support us often in other monetary ways. But that partner pickup is really challenging these days.
Later in the year, you and I will start having these conversations on a monthly basis because we typically talk about how during the holiday season, food insecurity in our communities becomes a bigger need. It's a larger, more front and center type of thing. Sometimes people forget that the summer is also one of those times because all of the children that are in school that are getting their breakfast, they're getting their lunch. Maybe there's a food pack program like the one that Elise runs from Bright Futures, Winchester, Frederick County. That school food that they're getting during school sometimes stops or changes dramatically. Can we take a break and come back and talk a little bit about summer hunger?
Yeah, it's a really important topic. I love to talk about it.
We're going to do all that when we come back. We are on the Zooms today with Les Sinclair. He is the communications and PR manager for the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank. We're going to talk a bit about summer hunger when we come back in just a couple of minutes.
This Saturday, Henry Mueller will change the world. He has no idea that's what he's going to do. He only knows that he went to justserve.org and signed up to spend time at a senior center Saturday morning. As he browsed through service opportunities in his own community, he remembered the words of Paul to the Galatians, "By love serve one another." Little does Henry know that Saturday morning he'll end up speaking to one senior in particular who hasn't seen his family in several weeks and is feeling especially lonely. Henry doesn't know the short time he'll spend with this man will lift his spirits, cheer his heart, and make his life just a little better. Through love and service this Saturday, Henry Mueller will change the world. See the difference you can make. Sign up for service opportunities in your community. Visit justserve.org.
Welcome back to the Valley today. I am your host, Janet Michael. We are on the Zooms today with Les Sinclair. He is the communications and PR manager for the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank. We talk every couple of months. Later, when we get closer to fall, we'll talk every month about the food insecurity in all of our different communities. And Les, when we went to break, we were talking a little bit about summer hunger because school, I think, is out across the state. I don't think there's any schools left that are still in school sitting here in the middle of June. But that means that there are a lot of kids, elementary, middle, high school kids even, that are not getting lunch on a regular basis or even breakfast on a regular basis. And that food has to be made up somewhere. These kids can't just not eat.
Yeah, and the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank really tries to support our partners in making sure that these kids have these things. We are packing break boxes. They go out to our partners. We distribute them through our partners, as a matter of fact, and those go to families so that they can have it. We also have a summer food service program that is a partnership with the USDA, and it happens in some locations throughout our service area, and it makes sure that kids can go to school and get these meals. Some of the meals are what they call congregate meals where the kids have to consume the meal there on site with other children, and there's sometimes a learning component. And then there are these things called non-congregate. It's very jargony. That simply means that they can take the meals with them. One of the statistics that surprises me is right here in Virginia, 1 in 7 children are food insecure in Virginia. 1 in 7. And in the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank, so we serve on average now about 177,000 guest visits every single month. About a third of those, 1 in 3, are children. That means that kids are making up a big population of the folks who are receiving food assistance.
That is a staggering number. If you think about being a parent and taking your kid to the park or to the playground, chances are at least one, depending on how many kids are playing on the playground at any given time, but at least one, potentially 2 or 3 kids are probably hungry while they're playing.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we say it like that, 1 in 7, because we want folks to really imagine 7 children on a playground. One of them is very likely food insecure. And depending on the playground, it could be more than that.
You can apply that anywhere. You go to the grocery store and you run into 7 different sets of parents with 2 kids, a toddler in the cart, thinking about those numbers and the fact that it is a struggle. I could not imagine as a parent. For me, that is one of the most difficult things that a parent would have to face. I will go hungry, but how am I going to be able to feed my child? That has got to be one of the most stressful and worrisome things that a parent should have to face.
That story is not uncommon. There are a lot of folks, a lot of parents who simply go without food so that the children can have it. They want to hide that stigma. They want to make sure that the kids don't feel insecure. They don't want their children to feel the insecurity of not having a meal. There was a story about parents. He was a HVAC guy, and she was a stay-at-home mom because he had 3 young girls, and they sold their couch for money while the parents were eating a potato a day so that they could feed their children. Then there's great irony in selling their kitchen table so that they could buy food for their family. And they eventually discovered a food bank partner and now are receiving food assistance all the time so that their family is thriving. But it is hard. He was injured on the job. And once those things become back to stability, everything can be okay. But it's situations like that that happen to people. And when your kids are involved, it really is a challenge. And that can be a real challenge in summertime because the schedules change. There are now camps and daycare that a parent who had their kid in school didn't have to worry about, now has to pay for. So there are extra costs there. A parent their path might change because they're not taking their kids to school. So they might not have the time to go to the food pantry. There are all sorts of reasons that summer increases food insecurity and demand on our food bank partners.
I love that you at Blue Ridge Area Food Bank have recognized that. And I love that we have some groups and organizations, particularly in our area here in the Shenandoah Valley, that also have recognized that. I mentioned Elise earlier, when Bright Futures, when summer comes, she has a bus and she has a route and they know when they're coming and what their drop-off locations are. And so I would assume then, from a listener perspective, if anyone is listening, dollars are incredibly helpful to you at the food bank because you get so much mileage out of a single dollar. But even donating locally to Elise, whether it's pop top cans and breakfast snacks and things that are healthy items, all of these things we can do to help support these kids through the summer.
Yes, and volunteering is also a really good thing. All of those efforts combined together are really what we're trying to do to make a stronger community and make sure that our kids have what they need so that they can learn and thrive and grow up to be healthy, productive citizens of our community, and make sure that that keeps going. And those sorts of situations are really so important, and volunteering and donating to your local organizations is so vital. Another reason that some folks might experience higher food insecurity in the summertime, especially with children, is that they lose access to the school, where if they run into a situation where they need food, they might be able to go to a teacher, or a teacher knows these things because the children tell them. So that's a resource that is now disconnected for the summertime, where they can't get that help. And so it's important for folks to know that they can go to the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank website for more information about all of these sorts of resources. Or if you have another resource in your community, reach out to them and ask them to help connect you to another resource.
And your website is such a powerful engine for being able to get that information out to people. Whether I live in Winchester or Woodstock or Newmarket, it doesn't matter necessarily where I live. I can go in and say, I am looking for a food pantry, and you've got the food pantry finder. You've got all of those things that people can access to use as a resource.
Yeah, and I have actually used it personally to help another person find a food resource because I didn't know where they were. They gave me their address. We could help them find it either close to their home or close to their workplace so that they can find a location and the time, the hours that work for them.
And that's what is incredibly helpful. A lot of times you'll find here's a listing and here's their address. But quite frankly, their hours are usually even more important than where they're located, because it doesn't do you any good to know where they are if every time you go, they're closed.
Yeah. I love that Food Finder tool too, because it has contact information for the resource, but it also has a map. So you can just click on it and it'll give you directions on how to get there. So once you find the place and once you get their contact information, away you go, and you can either help someone or help yourself.
The donate option on your website is really great too, because you can do it at any level. You can go in and say, hey, look, I only have $3 to be able to donate, and they can give you $3, which then equates to, let me see if I can remember this. $3 would then equate to 9 meals.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I did math, no less.
And the beauty of that $3 is that it's combined with somebody else's $3 and somebody else's $5 and another person's $100. And all those contributions come together and help us buy enough food to help distribute more than 32 million pounds of food last year. We're on pace to distribute even more than that. So it's the donors who are really making a difference in their community. And I think that is one of the things too. We're a community food bank and we rely on our community to help us. And so there is a community of people, there's a community of pantries and resources. Then there's the community of food banks in Virginia. There are 7 of them that all work together. And then across the country, we're all part of Feeding America, and we all work together to try to make sure that everyone has enough to eat.
I highly encourage that people go to your website and become a member of the Supper Club.
Yeah.
Because while $10 on the surface may not make you feel like that's enough, it is enough when you, like you said, it's combined with 10 other people, 100 other people. And I love getting the newsletters. I love getting the email reminding me that I've just made my $10 donation, because A, I don't have to think about it. And B, you do get that warm fuzzy every time you get that receipt in your email, or you get to read a story about somebody who has been able to be fed because I was part of that $10 a month supper club.
Yeah, the Supper Club is really important for us as a food bank because it's money that we can depend on. We know that that money is coming in month after month so that we can use those resources to make sure that our partners have what they need. Here at the food bank, the USDA food donations are way down. So we're buying more food than ever before. And especially like, for instance, we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to purchase meat. So our partners are telling us that they really need protein products. So we're going to spend the food bank's money to purchase the meat that we would typically get from the USDA. And then we make that available on a fair and equitable basis to our partner pantries so that they have the meats and proteins that they need to serve their communities.
So tell me what the website is one more time before we go.
Yeah, it's easy just to search for Blue Ridge Area Food Bank, but if you want to type in the acronym BRAFB, BlueRidgeAreaFoodBank.org.
And then look for you on socials, because you're always sharing great stories there as well.
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram are our main places that we hang out. We're on LinkedIn too, but Facebook and Instagram are probably the best places where you're going to get some of those really good stories.
Thank you, my friend, for taking the time to chat with me today.
Janet, thank you so much. I appreciate you very much.
I will be back tomorrow with a brand new episode of The Valley Today, a few minutes after noon. So meet me here then.